Far, far away, on the island of Lanka, the demon king Ravana was watching all of this with his magical powers, and he was jealous. Of course, you've realized that it was he who had poisoned the nurse's mind and made her ask the Maharaja Dasaratha to have Rama banished. And so, imagine his disappointment now that he saw Rama, Lakshmana and Sita having such a wonderful happy time in the forest. He decided the only thing left to do was to go and kidnap Sita, right from under Rama's nose. He mounted his flaming, flying chariot and launched off up into the sky. That day, Sita was playing with the animals in the clearing, and a creature came to her she had never seen before. It was a deer, but like no deer she had ever seen. It was silver, speckled with gold. She called out to it, but it turned and ran off into the forest. She begged Rama to go and catch it for her, and Rama felt like there was something wrong with the situation, but he had made a promise, a vow, to his darling wife that he would fetch her anything that she wanted. And so he ran off into the forest to catch that deer, and he chased it and he chased it and he chased it, and it stayed always just out of his grasp. And then finally he leapt and he wrapped his arms around it, only to find it disappear. And just before it vanished, it shouted out in a perfect imitation of Rama's voice, "Lakshmana! Sita! Help!" Immediately, Rama knew that this was a trick from the demon king Ravana. But when he tried to call out, "It's a trick! Don't listen!" he found that he could say nothing. He started to run as fast as he could back to his brother and his wife. Back at the camp, Lakshmana and Sita heard Rama call out. Sita begged him to go and help his brother, but Lakshmana explained that he had promised that he would stay and look after her. "But Lakshmana, it's your brother. He's in trouble. I'll be safe here. Go and help him." Lakshmana relented, but before he went, he drew a circle upon the ground, and he bade Sita stand in it. As long as she stayed inside that circle, he explained, she would be safe. And with that, he turned on his heel and ran off into the forest. Sita stayed dutifully inside the circle. But soon, an old man made his way into the clearing. When he saw Sita, he begged her to fetch him some water. "Please," he said. Sita explained that she was duty bound to stay in this circle upon the ground, but when the old man collapsed upon the floor, she realized that he needed her help, and so she ran to fetch the jug. But as soon as she had left that circle upon the ground, there was a blinding flash, and the old man turned into the King Ravana. And he grabbed Sita, and he mounted his flying chariot, and he dragged her off up into the sky. When Rama and Lakshmana returned, they found her gone, and they knew that they must take the long journey to the island of Lanka to rescue her. And en route, the monkeys and the bears and the other animals would come and ask them where their beloved Sita was, and they would tell them the story of how she had been kidnapped by the demon king Ravana. And the animals would offer their services, they would offer to help, and so it was, by the time they reached the ocean, they had an army of animals following them. But how were they to cross the ocean? There was no boat big enough to take them all. They decided a bridge should be built, and all the animals took armfuls of rocks, and the bears could take boulders, and the squirrels could only take handfuls of sand. And they started piling them into the ocean, and they piled them and piled them and piled them, and slowly a bridge grew and grew and grew, inch by inch, mile by mile, all the way to the island of Lanka. And finally they touched the other side, and the army poured over, and there they met the great demon army of Lanka. And a great battle raged, and stones were thrown, and swords clashed, and claws scratched, and the sky went dark with arrows, and many lives were lost on both sides. And finally the demon king himself came out onto the battlefield. He made himself tall with his magical powers, and he roared upon the army of animals. But Rama was ready, and he took Shiva's sacred bow, and he strung it with an arrow, and he aimed true, and he said a prayer as the arrow left, and it sailed through the air, and it stuck into the demon king's heart, and he died. And so it was that the island of Lanka became free, and so it was that the demon army was defeated by the monkeys and bears and squirrels and foxes. And so it was that Rama and Lakshmana and Sita travelled across, back over the bridge of stones, over India, back to his kingdom, where they found that 14 years to the day had passed, and he ruled as Maharaja with his queen Sita at his side, and they lived happily ever after.